Does it
Sure.
make sense for a mother who is struggling with breastfeeding to think about resuming or recovering breastfeeding right in the middle of an emergency?
It's a good question, and the answer is yes, and it's something that many women do. So we've seen in many past emergencies, relactation is actually something that happens quite commonly. When I came to work in this area, I came to it because I did research in relactation. And when I looked at other people who'd written about relactation, a lot of them were writing about it in the context of emergencies. So it is something that is quite common. Of course, mothers need assistance to be able to do this. So whatever the reason was for why they stopped breastfeeding in the first place, that needs to be addressed. So if they stopped breastfeeding because they felt that their baby was feeding too frequently, they need information to know that it's normal for babies to feed frequently. If they stopped breastfeeding because they had a lot of nipple pain because their baby wasn't attached well at the breast, then that problem needs to be solved in order for the mother to be able to successfully relactate. But it's absolutely something that can happen and does happen, and I can tell you here in Australia, in addition to the roles that you mentioned at the beginning, I'm also an Australian Breastfeeding Association breastfeeding counsellor, which is the same as a Relactation League leader, basically. And the Australian Breastfeeding Association here has been getting so many calls from women who are wanting to restart breastfeeding after having stopped because of what's happening with COVID-19. And for a lot of them, they're actually feeling, in talking to counsellors who've spoken to these mothers, they're feeling very empowered because it's something that they can do for their babies. It's something that they have control over. There's so many things that they do not have control over at the moment. But being able to breastfeed their baby is something that they are doing for their baby that they have control over. So it can actually be a really empowering thing. It is also something that women are doing because they're really scared. So it's really important for mothers to know that that it's okay to be scared too. But I guess in contacting, if women are contacting Relactation League, they're contacting other mothers who understand what it's like to be a mother and to be fearful for your child and to want to do the best you can for your child. So it's absolutely something that women can do. There's no guarantee that it's going to work for everybody, but I've not ever talked with a woman who has wanted to relactate and who's gone through the process, who hasn't felt that she was grateful that she tried, even if she didn't end up exactly where she wanted to be. She might not have gotten a full milk supply, she might have only gotten a partial milk supply. She might have gotten a full milk supply, but her baby might not have been willing to actually feed at the breast. She might have been feeding in another way. But I've never heard from a woman who said, I regret that I actually tried this.
Is there sort of threshold of amount of breastfeeding that would be really important to achieve to say, well, I am providing enough immunitary protection or so? I mean, we know that every droplet counts. We know that even just skin-to-skin contact is important. Okay, but is there any threshold of amount of breastfeeding that is really important to achieve, just in case one mother had this kind of concern and this kind of target to achieve?
We don't really know. I mean, we know that there's a big difference in terms of vulnerability to infection in exclusive breastfeeding versus even predominant breastfeeding. So there's that big sort of drop. Because it's not just about the volume, it's not just about the volume of the breast milk, it's also about what happens within the baby's gut when you introduce another milk and the sort of damage that that can do to the lining of the gut that will actually help facilitate infection. So there is that big difference. But we also know that it does make a difference, you know, so a baby who is partially breastfed is going to be less vulnerable to infection than a baby who's fully formula fed.